Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Got a couple of things we're going to propose today, and one of those topics is going to be the implications of this extended Pacific jet that we've seen develop and expect to continue at least through the next 10 to 15 days. But to get us started, there is a little closed low right here. As you can see, the closed circulation, and it's kind of very slowly moving in this broader trough feature as it kind of progresses off to the east. A couple things that's happened with this closed low. Just take a look at it on satellite today. Very impressive view of this system. So the upper level low is here. There was a surface low out ahead of it, and it's just very slowly spinning off to the east. And as it does so, a lot of showers and thunderstorms out ahead of it, including some severe weather. But look at how clear and dry it is on the back side of this. I also noticed another neat thing. Look up here off of the Rocky Mountains, really the front range as it goes through parts of Montana. A very large, what we call Chinook wall, at least that's one of the names we call these cloud features. They come off the mountains and then extend very high in the atmosphere over the foothills. Just an impressive view here of what's going on right now in the atmosphere. But underneath all this cloud cover, take a look at these temperatures. I'm recording this about 4:30 in the afternoon on Thursday, and under those clouds, we've kept temperatures, struggling to get out of the 50s and the low 60s. Where on either side of it, we've seen temperatures really rebound. Thankfully, the very hot temperatures that were in the Central Valley of California, especially in the Sacramento Valley earlier this week, have calmed down a bit. We're going to really see this temperature pattern open up and move quite a bit over the coming days and weeks. But I would like to show you the effect of that cutoff, slow-moving low. Well, it's really not cut off; it's closed, a closed low here, and it's been to deliver quite a bit of wet weather earlier this week in parts of Oklahoma and Kansas. Some places here easily grabbing 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. And what you see in this area has been kind of this constant push of moisture out of the Gulf, and also that tropical system we watched earlier in the week that moved through here. What's unfortunate about this upcoming forecast is that the change in the position of that Pacific jet right in through here is going to start to give us issues with returning quite a bit of moisture really here into this section of the northern plains, an area that's been exceptionally wet as of late. And a lot of the momentum that the jet is picking up has really, I think, come out of some changes in the tropics. What we saw over the, what was it, maybe a week and a half ago, was this very quick extension of the MJO at higher amplitude through phases 5 and 6, came right back around and is now forecast to sweep back out into phases 6 and 7 and wrap itself around. But it's the amplitude that matters to me. When the MJO is at low amplitude, the transfer of the momentum out of the tropics into the subtropics and eventually into the mid-latitude area just isn't high. But because of this motion, I think we're seeing this extended Pacific jet really begin to show up. And this is what it looks like. Just take a look right in through here, all right? So I don't think it necessarily matters which phase the MJO is in necessarily, as it's moving so quickly around the equator. It's just more about its amplitude, the amount of convection that's happening. So as we play this out through the weekend and into early next week and on out there to middle and end of next week, you continue to see from the Himalayas all the way here to the west coast an unblocked, fast-moving zonal jet. And that's something I'm going to be watching very carefully. Now, there's a website I like to use to look at this. I don't often show it to you, but it's this one here. It comes from the State University of New York at Albany. And this NPJ, the North Pacific Jet Phase Diagram. I love this work that's being done here because they make a really nice phase diagram. Do you see it here? Where if you're on this side of it, you're in a jet extension, a long piece across the Pacific. Over here would be a jet retraction, so it'd be very short, someplace probably broken or split. And then they have an equator shift and a poleward shift. And so you can clearly see we're on the extended side of this over the next several days. Now, what I want to watch for in this area here is if this starts to move in this direction in the month of June. Now, I've got a lot of research to do on this to read some papers and try to make sure I understand it right. But just generally speaking, if we see a poleward shift in the jet stream as we go into June and July, it tends to be weaker, and it also tends to break up into longer waves that tend to retrograde at times. And therefore, we can get a wave stuck somewhere. And if it gets stuck, that tends to just keep a persistent weather pattern. And you know that I've been very concerned about this occurring with respect to building major drought risk in the midsection of the United States. So I'll be watching a couple of things. This is the vertical and zonal integral of angular momentum. We'll be watching to see if we pick up more momentum here. But it is quite interesting to see in this diagram the red colors that have shown up in through this area as of late. Now remember, the red colors would indicate more westward momentum. The blue-green would either indicate less westward momentum or eastward flow, okay? So out of the east toward the west. And this right here, sitting over the tropics, has got me thinking a lot about what our La Niña is currently doing. Now again, compared to a year ago, the ocean temperatures are substantially colder. We've even seen more cold water show up here. We know that coming here off the Baja and what we call our negative PMM phase area, or broadly speaking, the PDO region, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation region, we still got quite a bit of cold water here. And these are both indicators, the cold water here and here, of increased risk of drought in the midsection of the United States. And again, it just tends to favor a jet stream pattern that tends to run something like that, and we've discussed that quite a bit. But with all this MJO movement, there's a couple things that I'm just keeping an eye on. Should we start to see these ocean temperatures fade a little bit, I don't think that would be unexpected given the time of year. But we're still going to persist with some sense of a La Niña signature. And as we start to look here over the Atlantic and see, for the most part, warmer than normal conditions, we'll have to be watching that MJO to transition to increase convection over the Sahel. And what that might mean for initiating tropical systems here in the next 2 to 3 months or even sooner. But also anything kind of homegrown, either out of the Caribbean gyre or possibly out of the Gulf of Mexico. I think those are all possibilities as we go forward with this. But let's just get a quick checkup on our La Niña, which we are anticipating having a base state La Niña through summer and even into next fall, which would give us a third year of this. The Southern Oscillation Index is still hovering up here around 19, 20, but I do expect this to come down with time. It would be normal in its progression to do that while still maintaining La Niña base state. I think we're going to watch that happen. I got a few reasons for that. We saw it in the models. By the way, we'll get brand new updates of this after June the 5th, so I'll be looking forward to sharing those with you. But if you just notice the models, I mean, take a look. This was the forecast for May for the ocean temperature pattern, and this is what we got. That's a pretty good forecast overall. I'm impressed with the models. So when I see them doing well in the near term and we go through June, July, do you notice a couple things here? We kind of lose our really strong cold signal there, but the colder water tends to sag south. And we develop a pretty strong Indian Ocean dipole signal, negative Indian Ocean dipole signal. And I think that these features are going to interact with this warm pool in the North Pacific. And I'm going to ask you to watch with me the extent of this warm pool carefully. I think if it continues to extend toward the West Coast, that will begin to lessen the risk of the drought in the midsection of the country and focus it more on the Great Basin. Should that not occur by July and August, it's going to increase that risk. And again, we'll get all new updates of these models because you've already seen them in several of my videos of what the models were currently saying. So I think it's a blend between what's going on in the tropics and the exotropics with the extended jet, the troughs in the Gulf of Alaska, and these trade winds. So thinking about that extended jet, just take a look at this. You're looking down at the North Pole. The blues are the troughs, deep troughs digging into the west Monday. I'll tell you about that one in a few seconds. But as I play this on out there to the first week of June, what I'm seeing here is primarily two things. I'll just stop this 10 days from now on the 5th, okay? I do not see blocking anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. There's no Rex blocks, high over lows. There's nothing to slow the progression of this down. So you have an extended Pacific jet around the base of that trough, but then no major block. Like if there was a big omega block here in the Atlantic, that would be something. But I don't see it. It's kind of there, but it's not. So what I think this does is this keeps the pattern open and flowing and moving, giving us a lot of transition. What I'm curious about is if the extended Pacific jet comes in like this tends to exacerbate our rain shadow, and it keeps much of the northern plains and then subsequently through the Great Lakes to New England wetter than average. And if we just look over the next 15 days, do you see it coming in? The waves eject like this, but we tend to just keep this whole area active with quite a bit of wet weather. Now notice, we do see better precipitation for parts of the northern plains and western Corn Belt. And this is an area that I'm quite concerned about given the newest updates from the CPC. I don't know if I showed you those. Let's go look at them real quick. If we go to the CPC website, Their seasonal drought outlook, which they released late last week, suggested that this area redevelops drought going into middle of summer, and that was something I was quite concerned about seeing there. But if we notice right now, there's going to be some better moisture coming into this area. The problem is here, and this is an area that's been so wet into the southern Canadian prairie of Manitoba and eastern or western Ontario, and these systems continue to avoid this part of Montana and getting into southern Alberta, a region that's really been struggling. Now, notice too that after the system that just rolled through this area leaves, the models are going over Drier for the southern plains and this big section of the Cotton Belt down here, and also along the lower Mississippi River Valley. And what was just released about 30 minutes ago is the new outlook from June 10 to July the 10th. And what I see in this particular forecast was a major drying signal in the midsection of the United States. And so what this makes me think the models are going after, because it's not very well resolved in the high field, but it makes me think that the ridge is probably going to set up somewhere along the front range in here. So the flow comes in and over, and then down you get a lot of convergence, an expanded rain shadow, and this comes back to some of our earlier concerns as this being an area that we're going to have to watch very carefully for the redevelopment of drought. What I'm looking for here is trend in the model, trying to understand what that trend is, and it's been consistent with kind of painting this picture for a while. So I think we need to have a lot of eyes on this area to see if this verifies going from now through July 10th, which for a lot of the corn crop, this will be approaching pollination for some of it here in the central and western corn belt, quite important time period. All right, I'll come to the temperature forecast in just a few moments, but I want to come back and talk about, again, that cutoff low and what's behind it. So out ahead of this today, we've seen quite a bit of strong and even at times some severe storms. A lot of lightning running up on the eastern periphery of that low, including some storms in Illinois, but also down here in the southeast. Some of these producing some damage reports. This is what the Storm Prediction Center was watching today. So this whole region in through here, plus what was coming through parts of the Pacific Northwest. Now tomorrow, we're going to see kind of two things happen. First system moves east, so we're going to watch from the Mid-Atlantic down to the Carolinas. And then the focal point as we get through into the weekend. So this is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and possibly even Tuesday, I'm going to be watching this same area on repeat. And don't forget, this area has already been hit multiple times this year. To get an idea about at least the next couple of days, let's go to the high-res NAM model. We'll pick this up about 6 o'clock tonight on Thursday. So again, you're just going to see a lot of scattered convection out ahead of this system. See it as it just comes through Illinois and Indiana in the overnight. And by Friday morning, it's pushing now into parts of the Ohio River Valley toward Pennsylvania. At the same time, there's a low that cuts through parts of British Columbia and Alberta. The tail end of that front, look at it right here. This is 2 p.m. on Friday. It swipes through parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Could bring in some precip to parts of North Dakota. But the next system really begins to show up on Saturday. That's Saturday evening, and you can see there's going to be multiple short waves that come around a deeper trough in this area. My big concern about it is this. Here's our cutoff low when we look at the vorticity field. Here's the broader low. Look how long of a wave this is. And you're looking at vorticity, and this is getting through Sunday into Monday and into Tuesday. Now, if I just rock back and forth, see these ribbons of vorticity? They keep pushing through the western corn belt in the upper Midwest, and each time they do so, they deliver a chance for initiating strong to severe storms. And while that's occurring, there's actually a little low that's kind of underneath this ridge that's sitting and spinning over Florida. Could bring some wet weather there as well. But my concern is this. By Sunday afternoon, getting into Sunday evening, looking about a mile above our heads, there's a pretty strong and extended low-level jet with wind speeds getting above that 50-mile-an-hour range. And then as you go from Sunday, look at that. That's overnight on Sunday. That's the nocturnal low-level jet. Going from there into, let's grab this, there we go, into Monday afternoon and evening. I just see this as a source for shear in the atmosphere. And just looking at Sunday evening, the Cape values, this is a measure of instability in the atmosphere. We're seeing Cape values here getting off my color bar, which means it's over 4,500 joules per kilogram in that area, at least according to the current model runs. So the Storm Prediction Center has, of course, got its eye on this as well. And this would be the outlook for Sunday night. And notice where they've got the greatest risk is right in here where that derecho event that produced that huge haboob that went through here. was more than a week ago, but did a tremendous amount of damage. That same area, please be watching out for this on, looks like Sunday is the current time frame. And then on Monday, notice it's in the same position, all right? So I just want to keep you folks in this area very aware of the severe weather that's currently at risk of developing here. I mentioned last time that the models had separated, but I thought that they had come back in alignment, and they did. That's good. I was glad that what I was seeing there made a lot of sense. But why don't we take a look at both models and play them forward over the next 7-8 days to see how things evolve. Now, you've already seen this cutoff low. We've seen that in the high-res models. It's going to take to Saturday to clear. There's the system that goes up into parts of Alberta that delivers on Friday night the chance for showers and storms in parts of North Dakota, Manitoba, and that region. But then another push of moisture coming in on Sunday through the Pacific Northwest, and then this is when the setup really takes shape. Look at that. I'll just rock back and forth. This is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Multiple chances in the northern plains and in the upper Midwest for strong to severe storms. Now, how far down the line do they build? Possibly by next Tuesday night, we could set this all the way up down here to parts of Oklahoma. At least the European models bid into that. And that lingering front stays there till Wednesday. See it? And that's going to bring in some showers and storms into this area while that cutoff low brings some wetter weather into the southeast. That gets us out about a week from now, and as we play it on forward, notice there's another system already coming into the Pacific Northwest as we stretch this out to next Friday. A couple of different ways to look at it. Let's just add up all the rain. So what's important to see here is that after the cutoff low goes through, this region's going to go over Drier for a while. All the action comes in the northwest and then pulls into the northern plains. So if I take you out there 1 week from now, this is what the forecast looks like. GFS, European. GFS, European. European's got a lot more water in it, I think, right now than the GFS does, specifically in the northern plains and as that front stalls out. So any of the colors you see here represent where the European is wetter. These would represent where the GFS is wetter. I just see a lot of very wet conditions out of the 12Z Euro in North Dakota. So we would hope that the GFS verifies in that situation given the flooding problems we're having there. But there is one thing that really shows up with that pattern doing something like this with a weak cutoff low here. There'll be a spot from Texas through Maine and surrounding much of the eastern and central corn belt and much of the cotton belt that sees drier weather overall day 4 through 10, which is largely just next week. There will be a lot of scattered storms in this area. There's plenty of moisture in the air. It's just that the triggers are all staying pretty far to the north. That's why we see the wettest conditions coming through here. Now again, as I stated, by the 5th of June, this is the trough I've been talking about for weeks as being just a major source of concern going forward, because the south of that's going to have just a screaming jet that comes through. And the net effect of this is that the full week 2 forecast keeps the northwest wet, keeps the northern plains wet. And those are two areas where we don't want another drop of precipitation right now so that we can get things going. So the map that I just drew on here is the 2nd of June through the 9th of June looking at precipitation anomalies. All right. Let's finish this one up by looking at temperatures, because our last month has split the country north-south and been much colder to the north here than it has been, of course, to the south. Because that jet's still coming in the same direction, don't expect to see much change in it. We've already experienced these high temperatures today. Let's go on to Friday and show you how things evolve. So already the heat comes back in, some downslope winds here in the right off the front range on Friday, taking temps into the 90s. Triple digits return to Texas. But as you saw the weekend, that's when the next trough comes into the northwest, the wetter weather that'll eventually make its way here on Sunday for the severe weather threat. Well, that's Sunday's highs, getting into Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. So what's going to happen here is that starting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, summer-like heat plus some drier conditions is going to build into this area. Scattered storms will be in this pattern, but most folks will be drier. So we're going to see a quick accumulation of some heat. The crop is really going to pop out of the ground here, but unfortunately, where that trough comes through, we bring in our next round of cold weather here into the northern plains, along with wetter weather. Looking out there to day 10, this is what we've got. Day 5 through day 10, colder air progresses, and then as we just wave it on out here to the, out to the day 15, that gets us to June 10th. What we notice is that this seems to be the split, right? It still has the cooler bias north, much above average temperatures to the south, which means triple digits in Texas once again, and that seems to be the setup overall on our temperature pattern. The last thing I'd like to show you is this map. This is the new June 10 to July 10 temperature anomaly forecast. And it has really opened up to some much above average temperatures where they expect it to be drier during this time period. I think this is the most critical thing to be watching right now to see if this does develop the way that the models are forecasting. It's going to be, as I stated on Monday, it's going to depend a lot on what happens in the Gulf of Alaska and if we do get the pattern to slow down to develop a ridge right in this area. So there are moving pieces we're going to keep an eye on. I'll watch them over the weekend and report back to you again on Monday. Have a good rest of your week, and I will talk to you then. Thanks.